Jay, I thought the funniest scene in the movie was when you were trying to get through the border.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was it hard for you to keep a straight face? And what does it say about maybe the security of the Canadian border?
Yeah, no kidding. Yes, it was hard to keep a straight face because that was me getting to go toe-to-toe with, like, one of the world's funniest humans, and Mike Wilmot. I mean, I've been a fan of his for a long time. He's a frequent collaborator of one of my best friends, Michael Dowse, and he was the star of this TV show Dowse did called The Foundation that nobody saw, and it's just like the funniest television show ever. And so, like, to have the chance to kind of create with him was like a really special thing, and yeah, we made each other laugh a bunch. And we actually shot at an active border crossing. It was a government installation. Like, we had permits, but they weren't super psyched to have us there. And there was really secure places we weren't allowed to go, and silly conversations about where are we going to put the coolers. Like border guards give a shit about our fucking coolers. but no, it was just like I had a feeling. You know, I really liked the scene, but I was also incredibly scared of it because, like, there's the potential for it to just not work at all and be kind of fucking crazy, and who would buy it and all that stuff. And so I think we just found a strange, like, that scene exists in such a strange, weird little energy, and I adore our back and forth, and I was encouraged to ham it up, as was he, so it was a lot of fun.
They gave us a wealth of material too. I can assure you that. And the weirdest part is I'm not going to say who, but we have 3 distributors on board. One of them wanted to cut that scene too, and it was a fight, you know.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd like to know them for future.
Well, was there a trick finding the balance between the heist story, which has to be fairly precise because you can't mess around, you take a little piece of that puzzle out and then it kind of maybe doesn't make sense later on, and, you know, against the funnier aspects, and there's a lot going on here. So tell me, just both as a director and then as a performer in the film, about finding just kind of the right tone to make this work.
Well, tone is obviously one of the, for I think a lot of people, myself included, tone is one of the hardest things to ever really kind of nail. And you don't really have a 100% certitude in what that tone is until you go through the editing process, until you balance things off against each other. And for me, I actually enjoy, is the wrong word, but I respect the test process to see where people are into the movie and out of the movie. And for us, it wasn't too hard to kind of find the balance of humor and activity. For me, the real big question was, at a certain point, a lot of these films, con artist films, move from being a heist film to a con flick. And the moment in this film where that movement takes place is after they seem to, you know, accomplish their goal. They get the MacGuffin, right? And that's about 65% of the way through the film. And it's not kind of revealed that that's an issue until about 10 minutes later. And that 10 minutes, the 10 minutes I'm worried most about. And that's the tone problem that I was worried about. Like, people are going to say, what movie am I in here? Yeah. I think, you know, if you keep it, you know, fun enough and you pepper it with enough moments, and working with somebody like Jay is fantastic because you know that he'll deliver the comedic goods. You know, you don't worry about that. And then people surprise you, like Terrence Stamp, who you didn't know could be so bloody funny and just so dry and arch, you know. But so many different styles, and I think when you have an ensemble cast, you can get away with having, you know, a variety of kind of comedic tones and approaches because it forms a world. I was more worried about the tone of the genre as it did that flip. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Did you ever, before you answer, you had to say Neil before Zod at least once? Did you? You had to.
That's not the one for me. The one for me is Mr. Tunstall from Young Guns.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So that was what I asked him about. That was like the first thing I was like, well, we talked a bit of soccer and stuff, and I think he was good friends with George Best or something back in the day.
That's right.
And it was his drinking buddy, I think. And so then we started. But I wanted to know all about Young Guns, and he was telling me. He just told me what all those guys were like in that time, what their sort of, you know, and the two Estevez brothers, and like where their heads were at and who wanted what, and just it was like, that's still one of my favorite movies, but yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you show up on set and you look over here, there's fucking Kurt Russell, then there's Terrence Stamp, and it's just like, I got a pretty cool gig, you know. And in terms of the other stuff, it's like, to me, as long as we know what movie we're in, as long as we know who we're playing, and as long as you know that your only goal, your only job is to serve the story, if you're doing that, then you can find little bits of daylight to sort of riff or find stuff that maybe wasn't on the page, you know, like because there's a ceiling on how much you can ever get on a page, and then when you put it on legs and breathe life into it, there's moments that come and that's life. And so, but we always, like you said, like there's a lot of moving parts in this movie. It's very specific, it's like a fucking clockwork. And so, as long as we didn't step on any of the stuff, like what I call the nutrients, like the stuff that needs to be communicated, as long as the audience gets their nutrients, you have the chance to do a bit of candy.
Yeah.
Do you think it's your take on that stuff's different now from when you first started acting? Obviously, a lot more experience from when you first started, but now that you're writing scripts as well, so you've maybe learned from both sides of the thing? Yeah,
I mean, yes, and without a doubt, like, ideally I'm learning, I'll never stop, hopefully. You know, I was... the shift for me when I got out of my head as an actor and stopped suffering from this chronic short-sightedness, nearsightedness that all actors seem to suffer from, which is can I do another? Can I get another one? Let me do it again. And just focusing only on their shit, right? And it was when I was, I don't mean to drop a name, but it's just fucking massively relevant to my life, is like when I was working for Eastwood, man, and on the very first day after every take, I was like, is that okay? He's like, yeah, it's fine. And I was like, oh shit. And I'm picturing him like, we got a new fucking kid, who the fuck is this kid, you know? And then Morgan Freeman fucking saw me freaking out. He goes, if he doesn't say anything, it means he likes it. And that was this. I was like, oh right, what difference does it make how I fucking feel? He's directing it, he's going to cut it together. If he thinks he's got what he needs, it's not me anymore. And it saved me, man, because you can tweak forever. And so sort of like, and that's when I realized, like, that was the when the penny dropped, when I realized I'm a cog in a machine. Never forget that.
Well, but at the same time, you know, I think that I think that there was a selflessness to you, and there was a selflessness to Kurt, and there was a selflessness to Terrence and Jason and all of them, which was, you know, edifying as a director to see that, you know, they take care in making sure that the story is served first and foremost. And it's kind of a trite observation, but they all did that. And when you're working in the middle of winter on a tight schedule in Canada, to have, you know, everyone that selfless is really, you know, both generous and you know, humbling and relieving as a director.
Chatty, why did you want to do this film, and how did you get involved with it?
I got sent a script, and I read it, and I really dug it, and I met this fucking guy on Skype, and I was just like, our philosophies just kind of dovetailed what we kind of want to do in movies and how we want to make them and where we want to make them, being, you know, like, we were just sort of like, I don't know, two patriots met each other, and it made sense, and it was just like, it seemed like a really fun thing to do, and on a 5-hour train ride away from my city, and so I was just like, fuck yeah, you know, like, it was, you know, like, it was just like any job that I take, I look at the opportunity, I look at who I'm going to work with and what it's about and where it's going to be and what it's going to be and what I pay money to see it and all that stuff, and it checked fucking every great box of my criteria, and so it was like, you know, to get the chance to, like, we need to make more movies here that take place here, and we don't hide our Canadianness, and we don't, like, I'm sick of seeing the Toronto skyline, and then when it comes time to currency being exchanged, there's a close-up on fucking American money, like, enough, and enough is enough, and so, like, and I was happy to meet someone else, because unfortunately we're in the minority. I can count on one hand the amount of filmmakers who, you know, are as patriotic and have the two connected, you know, and not in some weird propagandist thing, you know, like, I'm not trying to go out and sell the fucking pipeline, but like but just like, and if you were in any other country in the world, pretty much, and you wanted to make movies, and in your country, people just be like, oh, you're a filmmaker. Yeah. We'd be like, how come you're making them here? Yeah. You're Syrian. You made a movie in Arabic. You shot it for Syria? Yeah. Why did you, like, where's the establishing shot of Chicago? And I'm like, that would never happen.
Somebody asked that to Douse the other night.
Really?
Yeah.
They didn't.
Yeah, it was just, and it was like, why was it set in Toronto?
Why the fuck not?
Yeah. Why is it? Yeah.
That's where the cameras were?
I mean, like, and amazing, no one asked why Goodfellas is set in New York.
Yeah, totally.
And no one asked why Trainspotting is set where it's like, you know, like, a good movie's a good movie. It doesn't, like, you know, the setting is equal parts irrelevant and relevant. Yeah. It's wallpaper but it's also something. And and we got so much flack when we made the Trotsky for all the Montreal inside jokes we had. I was like, inside jokes? What? Because we mentioned a fucking street? Jesus Christ, man!
Rue Sherbrooke, hilarious.
Hilarious. What a little. Only a Montrealer would get that fucking joke. And it's just enough is enough.
And on a slightly optimistic note, I think that we as an industry begin to do that. I don't think that.
Hopefully,
there's absolutely nothing wrong with resolutely setting things here that are designed to be popular or designed to entertain.
Yeah.
So, I think it's a hallmark of a maturing industry.
I'm interested in asking you, working with an ensemble cast, you did that on your first film, and now this, and what is it that appeals to you about working with?
To be completely frank, part of it is both of these scripts, were written to be overstuffed by their general nature. I started both of them a long time ago, and the practical bonus of that is I get to work with a lot of great people. I get to fill a lot of roles with people that I've always wanted to work with, and kind of learn from them, and kind of see what they know. I think that working with ensembles forces me out of my comfort zone. To be completely frank, look, Jay speaks a specific type of language as an actor, and as but not just an actor, because he writes, he produces, and I'm sure he's going to direct pretty soon. So he speaks one language, and a guy like Matt Dillon speaks a very, very different language, and a guy like Kurt, who's been in TV since the 60s, speaks yet another language. And believe me, Terrence speaks his own language. So you have kind of like a panoply of languages here, and rather than make them learn my language, it's a lot of work, but I do my best to learn theirs and kind of
to develop an Esperanto for all of them.
Yeah.
Jonathan, what's the key to making or constructing a good heist movie?
Right. Well, I think with this film, I worked backwards. The initial inspiration was the actual true story of the theft of the Mona Lisa, which actually happened, and there's far more to that story than is mentioned in the film. It's just like a rollicking true story. So kind of finding that, that was the initial inspiration, and then kind of finding a way to twist it, and then kind of twist it again, and then make it somehow relevant to the world, like a fun, exaggerated world, but a fun, exaggerated world that I could kind of know. So ending first, work backwards. Know where you want to land, and then devise around it, and then...
And did you reference any heist films in development of the movie, or what are your favorite heist films?
Well, it sounds a little pretentious because they're very heady genre picks, but Rafifi.
I love that movie.
I love
that's
that
in one
too.
of my 100 best movies you've never seen books.
It's
wicked.
It's fantastic. I wrote this other script. This is the heavy metal heist project that I'm doing, Sons of the Hammer, where it's the anti-Rafifi. Where they're really quiet for 20 minutes. It's like ear blasting heavy metal for 20 minutes to disguise and mask the noise of jackhammer. It doesn't matter. But Rafifi, Bob LaFlambeur. Bob LaFlambeur was actually a touchstone for the relationship between Kurt's character and Jay's character, where you kind of had the mentor-mentee.
Mentor-mental.
Apprentice relationship, where of course in Bob LaFlambeur it goes the other way,
right.
And the character's a bit of a sadist. This, I didn't want to get into it that much, but that was kind of an interesting structure where somebody looks up to somebody else and wants to kind of learn at them. But Jay's character is far more savvy than the character in Bob LaFlambeur. He's a little bit more world weary, and in many ways the smartest guy in the room, even though he's the most detached
and the last to know.
He represents the audience in many ways. His character, he learns things when hopefully the audience learns things. They're not one step above Francie. They are with him. And that's the lens from it. So that's the 50s. Moving into this, I can go Top Khaki, Le Cercle Rouge, and then more contemporary stuff too. Even the Ocean's movies. I think but then there was also, I am mentioning films that Nine Queens. Did you ever see Nine Queens?
With Joan Collins.
No, Nine Queens. It's an Argentinian film from
it was remade with John C. Reilly.
And Gabriel Garcia Bernal.
Yeah.
I didn't see the American one, but the Argentinian one is fantastic. It's just really, really good, and it's a smaller scope, and it feels like a little bit of a throwback, in and of its time. So it seems like I'm referencing earlier films. And the reason is because I just saw a spate of heist and con movies that relied too much upon for lack of a better word, bullshit. Like the computer hacker who can tap into the city's mainframe and
what
shut
a
down the power
lazy
grid.
Deus Ex Machina.
It just felt like so it's a little bit of a throwback, and then I kind of wanted to tweak those genre sensibilities, but observe their conventions. I don't think that you don't want to just blow up these conventions. You want to observe them, tweak them slightly, and then hopefully make something that people enjoy.
In the midst of this big con, was there many pranks or cons going on between you guys on set?
Well, we had 28 days. 28 days outside in Hamilton. I mean, there was a very colloquial spirit on set. A lot of carousing, maybe, but no, there was precious little time to do anything but focus on the heist at hand. I think
it was.
There was never a slow day. I mean, we shot 6 to 8 pages a day.
Yeah, on average. And I mean, like a lot of setups, just because I need a lot of setups because that's how I like to cut. There was not a surplus of time for pranks and boners. Do they still call them boners?
No.
When you pull a boner? No? Yeah.
When did they?
I believe my grandfather used to call them boners.
They used to call it like when you pull a boner, you'd make a prank.
I've never heard pull a boner.
I have, but not in this context.
Yeah. There's this actually super famous Batman comic from like the 60s, and I'm not kidding you. The illustrator was Dick Sprang, and it was about how Joker was going to pull a boner on Batman. And it's a huge collector's item and worth so much because, in retrospect, it's utterly filthy.
That's awesome.
Sorry about that.
That's good color, thank you.
Look at her notes, Batman.
Yeah, Jonathan Sobol pulls a boner. That's the headline. In quotes. When you're shooting that quickly, 28 days to in 6 or 7 pages a day, a lot of stuff going on. There's not a lot of time to mess around. Are you going completely by instinct, or is it really well rehearsed and planned before you even roll anything?
Probably somewhere in the middle.
I would say definitely somewhere in the middle. Like I shot list absolutely everything. I like extensively, but I don't storyboard anything that isn't too elaborate.
Right.
And ultimately, we block, we rehearse, but then it's time to trust the guys. Place faith in the talent that you've chosen and respect what they're bringing to the table. And 9 times out of 10, they were spot on point.
Because Jay, the scene at the border feels kind of loose to me. Like it feels like
it isn't. Like we knew the parameters of the scene. We knew the sort of mile markers within the whatever 2 pages or whatever it is. We knew that we had this beat to hit, and it has to end here.
Right.
And so we rehearsed it as is, and then eventually me and Mike, we started kind of just, finessing. And finessing is the wrong word because it implies it needed finessing. It's more like just we found our own way in, sort of, and looked for little spots of daylight to do our own thing, kind of. But again, always knowing what the fucking gist of the scene was, and more importantly, where it had to go, right? Like what our out was on it, kind of. I think like as long as you know that you're given a specific parameters, and as long as you're adhering to them, your way of doing it. Mm-hmm. Sometimes can be up for debate.
Well, I think that's the kind of this is something that somebody like Jay is very, very skilled in, and I mean it's almost too simple to call it ad-libbing, because first you're going in with an understanding of character, and if you go in with an understanding of character and then you're coupling with that story concept of story. Okay, well these are the markers. This is what I need to hit. This is my character in this situation. The ad-libs are informed. It's not like just the random spewing of crazy shit. Although occasionally everyone spews some crazy
There were a
shit.
few riffs on what play I was going to do that I think one of them was Shithead Goes to Fucktown.
But I will say,
I would pay to see you with
Predator 2 shit is still in there.
I think we could add that to one of our worst title movies of all time.
Shithead Goes to Fucktown?
Shithead Goes to, we came up with, what else we got? Krull?
Krull was we're talking about just clumsy titles, not sexy titles.
Ega, name written in blood, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Jay, Jonathan mentioned that he thinks that you're going to direct soon. Is that something that interests you?
That's all I want to do. Yeah. That's all I want. I actually just got to. I directed a short when I was 21, but I got to pop my professional cherry about 2 weeks ago. the Trailer Park Boys are back, and they just shot a new season, and I got to direct the finale of it, which is fucking really cool.
That's cool,
really fun. And it was. So yeah, no, it's and all I want to do is direct movies, and so and just my writing partner and I, it's a classy problem to have. We're just super busy, and I just got to sort of pick one, and decide that this will be the one, and put all of our effort into doing it. But yeah, it's paramount amongst my concerns.
You'd mentioned Kurt and Jay's relationship, the mentor-apprentice, and it really does help ground the film. So I was wondering, was there anything that you did to help build that rapport and just how that relationship was for you?
It's one of these things where, if we didn't get along at all, I'm sure we'd find a way to fake it. But what really helped was, we just were two Chatty Cathys together, and I would just ask him every conceivable thing, every John Carpenter story, stuff about Tango and Cash, stuff about Tombstone, one of my very favorite movies of all time, and he was cool to talk about all of it, and so we just whenever we call cut, the two of us, Kurt and I, would go outside, have a cigarette, and talk about God knows. I mean, we talked about everything. We talked politics, we talked movies, we talked sports. He's a Canadian-O-Phile as well, and so the man has some real Canadian bona fides, and so I think that when it comes time to say action, there's an energy and there's a connection and a shorthand that we already, because we enjoy each other's company, and it can be faked. It's just way less fun and way more work.
It's a basic question of chemistry, and they had it. I mean, there's only so much that I could do to foster that relationship. It just came from them, and I think what is not mentioned is work ethic. And work ethic is something that I admire, across the spectrum in any endeavor. And both Jay and Kurt have an enormous work ethic. And like I said, I think that speaks volumes for why they were able to get where they got so quickly.
Hey, Jonathan, talk about casting Kurt Russell. Was he always your first pick, and how difficult was it to get him, or easy?
With the cast, we went in through the front door. I mean, we sent scripts, and the guys read it and agreed to do it. So in that particular regard, it was easy. And I often find that it tends to be a cynical view about actors, and that's they pick and choose and they do things for money. I guess that's true. However, in my experience, it's really a three-part thing. They read the script, they're either going to want to do it, or it doesn't matter who the casting director is, or their agent is, or what relationships are there. It's first and foremost, they read the script, do they like it? And the second thing is well, who's doing it? Who's doing it with me, and what's this person like? And if you're a director and you meet with them and they realize that you're not crazy and you're willing to put effort in and you're not wasting their time, well, that's two. And then maybe money. But really, it's Jay has more boxes than that are more specified. But I think that's the general order of things.
No, that's completely right.
Anyone that you really want to work with is going to do that, because, by and large, we're not throwing tons of dough at people up here.
And why did you want? Sorry, just as a quick follow-up. Why did you want Kurt for a Crash Calhoun?
Because he's a screen legend. I mean, he brings a gravitas to him, a very different gravitas than somebody like Terrence Stamp. But I mean, he is heroic. He is
one of cinema's great heroes.
Exactly, and he is also, and I mean this lovingly, he's also blue collar. Mm-hmm. He has an authenticity about him, which I greatly admire, and I was really welcoming the chance to work with Snake Plissken.
And you got him to dress as Elvis and do one of those things,
shit,
which is
man.
worth the price of admission to that movie.
Fucking cool is that?
I know, man.
The weirdest part is I couldn't talk him out of it. At first I'm talking to the wardrobe lady.
I thought you would have had to talk him into it.
No, it was the opposite. At first I'm like, well, let's do it with a little bit of tassels and let's not go too far. And he looks down and he's like, I was really hoping for a way wilder suit. And then I was like, all right, and then I wanted to take it really far, but eventually we settled on kind of that, and he's like, yeah, and he's really kind of...
That is like my favorite thing at the festival so far this year is that.
And then he does a karate crane kick too.
He does the karate kid thing.
But only with half the leg, and he knew it too, and then he's like, all right.
Jack Burton.
No kidding, yeah.
Because
one more minute, guys.
He has and here's the best part. He likes to have fun. He likes to work hard, have fun, and he's like Jay, selfless.
I know we talked about setting it in Canada and making it Canadian, but Niagara Falls, it's your hometown. It has like this beautiful backdrop, but it also, has a campy feel to it. Was it a perfect place for a heist movie, do you think?
Well, I've said it before and I say it again. I think Niagara Falls is a great place to shoot. I think many parts of it look like a standing set. And I think that, it tends to be a little bit misunderstood. And to be honest, Canadians make fun of it a little bit, but I'll tell you something. It's slightly super real, and without sounding like I'm coming from a completely different place, I always think there's a little bit of magic realism to Niagara Falls. I mean,
definitely.
you have kind of the surreal beauty and all this kitschy fun. And I mean, it came out, Niagara Falls came into being from the 50s. Like, I lived there the first 17 years of my life, 18 years of my life. It came into being in the 50s due to car culture. Because it was the one place that, you can go on a busman's holiday. You're not getting a lot of money, you can hop in your car, you can go to Niagara Falls, you can check in a motel. That's what built that city, more than anything else. There's no heavy industry there. And I find it beguiling and interesting. And it's
a very, very specific part of the world.
It is.
It's equal parts gorgeous and seedy and strange and kind of disarming as well, and just like, and like you said, the whole thing's a backlot. You put a camera anywhere in that place and you have production value up your ass. Like, you have nothing.
I never think of it as a place where people live.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think of it as Telegraph Hill and whatever else in the water and the Houdini Museum, but I don't actually ever think of it. I know people must live there because people work there, so they got to live.
But I'm working at a motel.
I grew up in a motel. Like, my family came to this country and bought a motel.
Heart-shaped.
There are now. Where were they? Yeah, the Blue Moon Motel on Lundy's Lane is still standing.
Right.
Yeah.
On Lundy's Lane?
Yeah.
That's the actual Battle of Lundy's Lane?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's wild, man.
Damn.
Wow.